Today on Ktown Social Club, we have a Japanese PhD student gets his visa revoked and then reinstated almost immediately. China is looking to strengthen its ties in Southeast Asia, and Vitaly's prison accommodations in the Philippines. We're going to look at that, all that coming up and more.
From Koreatown, Los Angeles, thank you for tuning in to Ktown Social Club for the issues you really care about. With David Yoon, Hajin Cho, Douglas Kim, and your host, Ed Choi. And with that, let's start the show.
And welcome back. Today we are joined by our panelists. We've got David Yoon, Douglas Kim, I'm Ed Choi, and welcome back. How have you been, David? We missed you last week.
Yeah, just super busy at work. Also, what does a 01540
That's
stand
the AM station. So it's rock call, Radio Korea,
1540
like AM.
I see.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's nice.
Oh, dang, I know that. And even I was like, the 0184, I was like, no, dang it. Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to tune into the radio, it's 1540 AM in Los Angeles.
Or you can go to radiokorea.com and stream it there.
Actually, does Radio Korea stream at like 6 a.m.?
I think so.
They probably just stream all their
They're
radio
24/7.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, because I should listen on my way to work. I check it out.
You can.
I wouldn't understand all of it, but
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
If you do, then you should.
Yeah.
But jumping right into it, so last week on the 16th was the 11th anniversary of the Sewol tragedy, which if any of you guys are familiar with
US
Is that the 2014?
Yeah, it was over 200.
yeah,
Oh,
2014.
the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was.
Children, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, middle
So
schoolers,
we have a set of photos right here, and I'm going to go over some of the details with you. So morning of April 16, 2014, a ferry that was going from Incheon to Jeju City capsized and sank. There were 476 people on board. 304 people died, including 250 students from the Tanwon High School in Ansan. 82% of the casualties were children.
Yeah. And it was disgusting the way they died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
The captain crew or whatever, they
Yep.
just saved themselves.
Yeah.
And out of the 172 survivors, more than half were rescued by fishing boats and other commercial vehicles that arrived at the scene 40 minutes before the Korean Coast Guard arrived.
I mean, that's a big reason why Park Geun-hye was very unpopular.
There was a lot of horrible controversy surrounding this because it was not handled well during the tragedy, after the tragedy, by everyone involved, including government officials. For instance, originally there was false reporting by the government and South Korean media that all passengers had been rescued and were alive initially. I don't know why they told that lie. It was obvious it was going to come out afterwards.
Well, they're Chinopah scum, so they're used to lying.
The government was also criticized for refusing help from other countries and publicly downplaying the severity of the disaster. So on May 15th, the captain and 3 crew members were charged with murder, and 11 members of the crew were indicted for abandoning the ship, as you mentioned earlier. Yeah. And the owner, there was an arrest warrant actually issued for the owner of the company that owned Sewol boat, and they couldn't find him initially, and then found him roughly 180 miles away. They found his body in Suncheon.
Yeah, that's not shady or suspicious.
Yeah, like did he actually, or was he?
There's a whole documentary about this
Yep.
called Zero. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it. I haven't
Oh,
seen
you've
it.
heard, you have actually heard of it?
Yeah.
So I'm part of an organization called.
Actually, I think I heard it from you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think you mentioned it
Okay.
before.
I
Yeah.
watched the Fern thing documentary, but it was more about the Chebels that kind of went over this a little bit. But
Yeah.
I've never watched the thing you're talking about.
It's essentially talking about how it was a U.S. submarine that caused it, and there's so much damning
It was a
evidence.
US what?
Submarine that hit it, and the South Korean government. The reason why they didn't
That's
help
why
for
they
so
covered it
damn
up.
long was because they were trying to cover up.
Because
the US.
they're Chinmi-pa scum.
It's same thing with
Wait, really?
Yeah, there's so much evidence for it. Like you guys watch the documentary. It's like mind blowing. But they interviewed like.
Oh my
Oh, I will.
God.
They interviewed like the survivors, the victims' families, and like.
They were like, "Wait, something hit us.
This is like USS Liberty shit.
Like they felt
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, they all said like we heard like a giant thud, and then so they said that it started capsizing slowly like this. But when you look at the boat, like what do you call it? Like not flight logs,
like
Boat
the
logs?
Boat logs, yeah, sailing logs. Yeah,
or something.
it doesn't match like the pattern of something that would just like slowly capsize this way. It like looks like something hit it and it hit it off course.
This
and
is
then
USS Liberty.
Weird. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Okay, because the information that I got, so basically what they were stating that this was an 18-year-old boat that Korea bought from Japan. It was a
Yeah,
ferry boat
yeah,
over there.
yeah.
They did do a lot of modifications to it, which
A Chinapa boat.
there are some, discrepancies on whether or not it was illegal or not, but it did pass inspections originally. But for instance, they added 2 decks of passenger space as well as an expansion of cargo space, increasing their tonnage from 239 tons to 6,825 tons, along with the passenger capacity by increasing it by 116 people for a total of 956 people. On that day, and apparently they also included like 37 tons of marble in the back after it had passed inspection. So they added more weight and more,
they talk about this
balancing
a little
issues.
in the Fern documentary.
Yeah, so they state that on the day of the departure, although maximum allowance was for 987 tons of cargo, the Sewol was carrying 2,142 tons of cargo, which is like more than double.
Why are kids on a cargo ship anyway?
Because they were going to Jeju as a school trip.
Yeah.
And I think that happened regularly.
Yeah.
So they did sail like 200 and some, sailings before this tragedy happened. But the way that they thought in the stuff that I read was that because the ship was already imbalanced from all the modifications and the extra cargo that day, they apparently for some reason, and there was some discrepancies based off of some of the crew members' testimonies, but for some reason they took a sharp turn, and because of the imbalance, it capsized the boat. That's what they were.
Yeah.
What I read.
I remember that too, like the whole talk about like deregulation and stuff like that. And like I think that's completely like true.
True.
But when you look at the
But-
dash cam,
Yeah.
so they recovered the dash cam and the government wouldn't allow access to these documentarians for like over 10 years. They finally got
When
their
you
hands
say
on the
dash cam, you mean like literal
of the cars
footage?
inside the cargo hold. And you can hear doom. You hear like a giant doom and then it just goes, yeah. It's insane.
I mean, like you guys know about the
Yeah,
19.
yeah.
There was like this 1994 incident when the bridge just collapsed, right? And it was just obviously due to like shoddy workers or like cutting corners and shit. And yeah, they just protect the chebbles. The
Yeah.
chebbles are just protected. No
I mean,
matter how much bullshit they do,
They do have a history of that. But
basically, it's Samsung just controls
that's
the country
crazy.
Yeah. No, you guys should definitely
now.
watch
The
the
chebbles just
documentary.
control the country.
No, for sure.
It's a fucking Nazi country that just is run by these.
But dang,
oligarchs.
if an American sub sank it,
Yeah.
that's huge.
I mean, well, if you're
Why-
South Korean, would you rather blame it on like, oh, just capitalist greed, or the fact that the U.S. military just killed 200 plus of our middle school students? Which one would cause like a revolution, and which one would just be like, oh, it's rich people
Chinopa
again?
scum.
Yeah,
Chinmipa scum.
yeah. And like, there's a recording that the government finally like released of the Coast Guard saying, "Don't come, everything's fine here, don't come." And they released like the footage, and it was edited very poorly. It was like edited
that's
very poorly.
Very similar to the USS Liberty, where they were like trying to send an SOS out to the Israeli ship, but then
Yeah.
like finally they sent an SOS out like in general, and
Yeah.
Israel's like, oh shit, we need to stop bombing them because now they got a message out.
that's crazy. I have to watch that.
Yeah, no.
Where can we stream it?
I don't know. I can definitely find
Okay.
it
What's
for
the
you.
name of it?
Zero Sum Game.
Zero Sum Game.
Yeah, and we hosted like the directors who made it.
What
like,
year
in
was that
Zoom.
made?
Like this year, like this past year.
Oh shit!
Because they were finally able to get their hands on like the
That's crazy.
government released files.
Yeah, that's gonna be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And, and you
that's
watched
for
the
sure.
you watched the other thing that the Squid Game creator made, right? Remember?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So,
yeah.
yeah, like I said, in the past 10 years, there's all these movies. Squid Game, that movie you talk about, this movie you're talking about, and like Parasite. These are very explicitly anti-capitalist movies
Right.
that are coming out,
Right.
or media.
Yeah.
It's true. On a different note, I don't know if you guys heard about this, but a Japanese PhD student at Brigham Young University was having his visa threatened of being revoked because of overfishing on his license.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, his name is Suguru Onda from Japan. He's a 6-year student so far, with 1 year left on his computer science PhD. He's married with 5 kids. 2 of his kids were born in the U.S. while pursuing his degree. His research focuses
Are they Mormons?
They are. So he is part of the Church of Latter-day Saints. He is Mormon.
Yeah.
But his research focuses on AI and technology development. His only prior
Conviction.
issues were 2 speeding tickets and a 2019 fishing citation for exceeding his license limit during a church fishing activity.
Wow.
Yeah. So like he went fishing with the church, and I'm assuming somewhere along the line they were fishing under his license. They caught too many fish. They just got a citation. It's not even.
Yeah.
It's like throw it back into the ocean.
Yeah.
It's not even like an actual crime. It's just you broke statute, you pay a fine.
Yeah.
So he received a notice earlier this month that his I-20 visa was being revoked for, quote, individual identified and criminal records check. He was given 15 days to self-deport or face deportation.
Oh my God.
So he and an immigration law attorney filed a federal lawsuit this past Friday morning.
Mm-hmm.
Within minutes of them filing this lawsuit, Brigham Young University received a government confirmation that Onda's visa status was fully reinstated.
They were like, oh, no, these are the good Asians. The Japs are the good ones.
Within, when I say minutes, I think it was like within less than 10 minutes of them filing this lawsuit.
Yeah.
They were like, just kidding. He's good to go. We already told your school you're good.
I mean, this is like the reverse of the Vincent Chin we just talked about the last episode. Or I don't know if we caught that on camera, but
We did.
But yeah, it's the same thing. We're like, oh, wrong Asian, because like throughout history, it used to be the Chinese with the Chinese Exclusion Act, and then it was the Japanese because like we got in war with them, and then it was like, oh no, it's the Chinese again. Oh no, it's the Koreans actually. No, oh wait, it's the Vietnamese that we hate now, and during the fucking 1980s, so it was back to the Japanese because they're beating us.
And then the whole time they were like, can we even tell the difference between these? Aren't they all Chinese anyway?
let's just hate crime them all.
Yeah.
That's what happened in 2020s.
Wasn't that one Asian guy that was killed because of Toyota?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in
Vincent
1980s. Vincent
Right.
Chin.
And he was not even Japanese.
He was
No,
Chinese.
yeah, he was Chinese.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it
There
was
you go.
it was like his wedding
Not only
weekend
that,
or
Are you
something.
serious?
They,
Yeah,
they
he was
just got off
supposed to
with a
get
fine.
married.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
The guys who
into
killed
it.
him?
Yeah. They like followed him out of the bar. They chased him down, took out a baseball bat, and beat him. It was very much premeditated
it was
because there's
just
so
lynching.
many stops along the way where they were able to stop,
Yeah.
rethink, and like shake themselves out of it, and they didn't. And all they got was like barely a fine, if I remember. Yeah.
What the fuck?
So, yeah.
The Nazi, this, like I said a bajillion times, this is an anti-Asian Nazi country.
And I hate to say it, but apparently the only way to get out of possibly getting deported is to act like a white person, threaten a lawsuit.
And you know about like the Japanese internment camps, right? How basically they were pushed for by I might have even mentioned this last week. But they were pushed by farmers in California to like because they were getting crushed by Japanese
I did
farmers.
mention that,
Yeah. So it's the same fucking shit. They just like
Yeah.
use any sort of excuse to like fucking shit on Asians, even if it's not even the right Asian.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Because like in Utah, I'm sure there aren't that many Asians, right? That's why I kind of joked about, is he a Mormon? Because
Let's look it up. Asian population in Utah.
It's got to be not that.
it's like
I'm going to
1%.
say like 5%.
It's probably less than that.
So in South Salt Lake, it's 9.2%.
Wow.
But in all of Utah
about Brigham
as
Young?
a whole, it seems that it's roughly around like 6%.
Oh. It's not as small as I thought it would be.
Yeah, that's not too
Yeah, that's
bad.
actually
It's
really
like
confusing.
Nebraska or something.
Why? If you're in Utah and you're Asian, please tell us why you're there. Outside of your parents, and tell us why your parents are there, obviously.
The Book of Mormon. Did you guys see Under the Banner of Heaven?
Yes.
With Andrew Garfield?
Yes.
You saw it?
Yeah, that was a good show.
That was very
What
good
is
show.
that? It's a show?
It was a Hulu. It was on Hulu, right?
Yes, it was
Oh,
on
I didn't
Hulu.
watch
Yeah,
that.
it's pretty good. It's about like the, I guess, Mormon fundamentalists.
I mean, he is my favorite Spider-Man.
Me too. Me too.
Same.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 3, we still want it.
Sony
The
version?
Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah. But yeah, it was about like Mormon fundamentalists, and he's like a part of this group that like investigates.
He's a cop, but
Crimes
he's also
with- oh, that's what it
he's
is.
also like a loyal Mormon
Because
person.
the other thing that a lot of people don't know is the FBI regularly recruits from Mormons because they know that they're clean cut and they're disciplined or whatever.
And they follow
Really?
the rules.
So so the FBI regularly
They don't ask
recruits from
questions.
from
Yeah,
the
they don't
Mormons.
ask questions and they just follow.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I was just following Otis.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But staying on the topic of deportation, ICE has just been told by a federal court that they must reinstate legal status of 133 international students by today.
But what happens if they don't? Because there's a huge chance they're not going to.
No, yeah. So the lawsuit was filed by the ACLU and other groups claiming that ICE, quote, abruptly and unlawfully terminated records on the Student and Exchange Visitor Information System, a database that the Department of Homeland Security uses to monitor non-immigrant students. The lawsuit claims that by terminating these records, ICE is ending a student status and making them deportable. And some of these students are like nearing graduation or even enrolled in work programs. And most of these students at most have a traffic violation or in some cases minor misdemeanors that later were dropped. But some of these people have never been arrested or cited for any violations, including even traffic violations. And a hearing is currently set for Thursday. So
it's pretty
by
much
the day this day drops.
This shit is pretty much the Israeli Gestapo. That's what it is. It's the Israeli Gestapo that's trying to like deport any student that is against the Palestine stuff right now.
Yeah.
This is insane.
It is insane. So we don't know, Trump's administration has, Trump specifically regularly has been being like, I don't care what the courts say. So to your point, I don't know what happens. But they are stating, I think I read in this article, that the court is about to hold Trump's administration in contempt of court.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know what that means because typically when you're in contempt of court, you could face jail time. So are they
I
going to
don't know
put Trump in jail? They're not.
What
So
happens
we
at
don't
the
know.
government level, though?
Right. That's what I mean.
Right.
And wouldn't it be like, I'm just going to pardon myself?
Yeah. Like I understand that Trump is like, doing all these unprecedented shit and stuff like that. But I think the fact that he can still do it, period, shows more about like the country
Our
I mean,
system.
the CIA
than
is
the
controlling.
president.
It's
itself,
always the CIA.
Whether it was Trump or Biden or whoever, if they wanted to do it, the fact that they can and keep going
Yeah,
with
that the
this.
system is put into place where he could even
Do
do
this.
this. Yeah, I
Like,
do
you know
agree.
what I mean?
The
That is
CIA
alarming.
created all this woke shit, right? But they knew that woke shit was going out of flavor, so they like turned the spigot, be like, "Oh, Trump's our guy now." And so the CIA is always manipulating narratives to make it seem like we have a choice, but really it's just.
Do you think how smart do you think the CIA is? Actually, I don't think they're actually
don't
all
think
that
they're
smart.
that smart.
These days, there's not as smart. The people at the top are
Yeah.
probably like the ones running the show.
Yeah.
They do kind of like they did recruit a lot. I think in the 2014 about like when Gamergate was happening, they did recruit a lot of like 4chan autists who might be like kind of like smart in some ways, but probably not big picture smart.
No, yeah.
But in the 50s and 60s and 70s, that's probably when the CIA were at the top of their very
Right.
game because they.
Because there's no social media, you can't get your information anywhere else.
Yeah.
Because that's when like
You just believe what you're told.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
they recruited from the Ivy League, like Harvard, Yale, Princeton. It was just like HYP pretty much.
Yeah.
So they were really smart.
Like in the
back
shows and movies.
50s, 60s,
Right,
70s.
right.
But I think because of the Cold War ended,
Yeah.
they kind of like laxed on the,
on the
took
talent acquisition?
They took their foot off the pedal because they're like, we kind of got
And
it.
I
We
think
don't
with the
have to worry.
development of like technology and the internet, I think they did stop recruiting
Yeah.
from Ivy Leagues because they were like, we need
They probably
tech nerds.
more.
Yeah,
They probably
yeah.
more focus on NSA
Yeah.
recruitment.
For sure.
I mean, the NSA like publicly said
can
we
believe
have
that.
30,000 people on payroll just commenting and like on social media,
Yeah.
bots, like human bots.
Yep.
They said out loud,
It's propagandists.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they said out loud,
so
we have
sometimes they're
30,000
defining,
people.
like,
With the
feds.
NSA?
like actually, yeah.
Yeah, when you're on Twitter, sometimes you're fighting feds.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes I make jokes about like people who are stupid and but keep attacking me. It's like, wow, I didn't know the CIA's budget was this this low these days.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
How did you get this job,
That's
you
crazy.
idiot?
And also, I believe for the longest time, Korean was the #1 language taught at the CIA because of North Korea.
Whoa.
And
That's crazy.
And I remember
Actually-
I fact checked this a long time ago. Yeah,
That's
But
crazy.
and the CIA calls North Korea a spy black hole
But you know what the
because
funny
they
thing
can't
is?
get
They
anything out
can't,
of it.
yeah,
But you
well,
know
they
what-
can't put any operatives in
Yeah.
there.
But you know what the funny thing is? The June 25th, 1950 invasion was a surprise attack, despite the fact that they could send whoever they wanted. Those are the demilitarized zone. It was just like a regular, open field where they could send, Korean agents on either side. So it's just like, oh yeah, we were caught by surprise, guys.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually funny that you guys mentioned that because our next topic is about intelligence, the American intelligence and Korea.
Oh, I saw this video.
So yeah, if you saw this video, this is ridiculously hilarious. Just watch this, Doug.
It's hilarious.
Kim invade the South
Wait, sorry. Let me reload that so we can hear.
on the Korean Peninsula. Would Kim invade the South?
Sir, I would tell you that I don't believe he would. But what I would tell you is he would take advantage of other weapons and systems that he has, conventional, to limit the Republic of Korea's great growth that's taken place over the past 75 years. I think that if we look at the hardening that's occurred on his border at the present time, the fences have been raised, mines have been seeded in the demilitarized zone. I think that what we see is
Why is he doing that? Is there any threat that the South Koreans are going to
That is
invade
an Uncle
North Korea?
Tom, by the way.
Sir, I think it's as much about the things that he's broadcast in open source, that he is a sovereign nation. He's not looking to work at reunification. He's blown up all the means of industry in the DMZ.
I thought you said in your opening testimony he's not talking about reunification. He's talking about one whole country. Doesn't that imply an invasion of the South?
No, sir. He considers himself sovereign north of the MDL, sir,
So
which he claims is his southern boundary now.
So he's accepted the boundary. In which case, if you testified he wouldn't invade, then why are we there?
I think Senator, I don't think it's a matter of whether he'll invade or not. I think that these intentions to cordon off North Korea could very well be temporary.
Without our presence on
What does that even mean? They're just saying a bunch of
Yeah,
what?
It's just a lot of double speak.
It
Yeah,
really
it's
is.
just-
It's
what are they
very nonsensical
saying?
conversation.
Yeah.
But basically, they don't understand why we need 28,000 troops in Korea spending $4 billion a year, because that's how
Yeah.
much it costs to have them over there.
Yeah.
So they're like, why do we need this? And apparently, our government officials don't know why.
Yeah, we literally have had, the DPRK has a defensive position against the South since the 1990s.
Yeah,
They have not, put a forward position since the 1970s. That was the last time they kind of put more of a forward position. But by the 1980s, 1990s, they realized, oh shit, the Soviets are crumbling. We don't have and South Korea's military, their economy is growing to the point where we can't beat them with conventional weapons. We need to now kind of like make more of a defensive position and try to develop nuclear weapons so that we kind of have like assurance of our own survival.
Yeah.
The nukes were never supposed to be like, you have like idiots in America thinking, oh, Kim Jong-un's going to nuke us at any time. It's like, why would they do that? The moment they do that, their entire country is like irradiated with nukes.
Yeah, it's like the same reason when I'm like, I've been thinking about maybe buying a gun. It's not because I want to go shooting stuff. It's because like the world is getting so crazy that I'm like, maybe I might need this one day
Yeah,
for
exactly.
protection. I
It's
don't
just
know.
like, don't bring a nothing to a gunfight.
Right. No, yeah. Speaking with you guys and being on this panel, that is the one thing that I did come around to for sure. I was like, no, that's a good point. That's a good point. I think I believed American propaganda before this. So, we're all susceptible to lies.
I mean, I always tell my parents all the time, you guys have been in the most propagandized country in the 1950s to the 1980s.
Do you know what's really funny is the other
You are
day,
the one who are brainwashed.
The
If
other
anyone's who's
day-
brainwashed, it's South Koreans who live in that area.
the other day I was having a pretty intense conversation with my mom. And I was like including some of this in there. And she's like, I can believe that. She's like, Don't say any of this stuff too publicly, though.
That's what my parents say too. They're like, oh, they're gonna stop us from entering the country. If you
Yeah,
keep saying
she
this.
actually did say that. She's like, that you shouldn't say. She's like, they're not going to let you in the country.
And then I'm
anymore. And I
like,
was like, oh, that's
good.
a fair point.
I'm like, good. What it do? I'm gonna use that to propagandize and get you even harder.
I want to go to South Korea, so
I wonder though, with Trump and Korea. I mean, he said before, like, oh, why are we in Korea? Blah blah blah.
He wants to make a deal with North Korea.
Right.
Yeah.
I think at this point is my guess is only thing he cares about is being that first U.S. president that struck a deal with North Korea.
Yes.
Whatever. It's a completely personal
it
thing.
is. Everything he does is narcissistic.
Hey,
He doesn't
we'll-
care about the
We'll
actual
use
relations.
it. We'll use it.
He just wants to be the first to do this or the one who
Right.
did this the most
Whatever.
or the
Right,
greatest.
right.
We'll use it. We'll take it,
Fair.
guys.
It's like I said about Vitaly last week. I was like, I don't care why. I was like, Vitaly's in prison
Right.
forever. So
So I don't think in the long term that the U.S. can win this like Cold War with
No.
North Korea's not going to denuclearize. There's absolutely no way.
Yeah.
not the way that
No,
not the way that it's
so
going.
the U.S. has to do something different, which I don't know if Trump is going to do. I mean,
And now that obviously probably like Russia and North Korea making more economic ties
Yeah.
as a result of
Right.
Ukraine, they're only going to get more and more powerful. And then like if Trump continues this trade war with China, maybe
Yeah.
China's like, you know what, fuck your sanctions.
Yeah.
We're going to trade with North Korea now.
yeah.
So staying on topic with that, the progression is insane. It's like I can predict the future. I'm just kidding. But the next topic is, so the U.S. and Philippines did military drills this past week. Apparently, it's something that is annually done in, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering this, Bicutan military exercises. It happened on April 21st, so literally just the other day. It involved 9,000 U.S. troops and 5,000 Filipino troops. The drills featured advanced weaponry aimed to enhance joint defense capabilities in the face of China asserting in the South China Sea.
Such
And
fucking
China
bullshit.
is very strongly opposed to these exercises, obviously,
Duh.
because it's a showmanship.
Yeah.
It's saying, hey, look what we can do, which is weird because, again, I've said this a couple of times, but like, who has China invaded in the last 60 years?
Only 1979 Vietnam.
Yeah.
But that was due to, in my opinion, that was due to U.S. fuckery with
Yes,
the CIA.
but not because they were trying to take over Vietnam.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It was
That's what I mean.
kind of like they used it's complicated. I was talking about this a lot last week, but they were using Cambodia as a wedge against Vietnam and playing off Chinese paranoia over the Soviets. It's a very complicated situation that like virtually no one in the West understands fully. But I've talked to many Cambodians, Vietnamese, and Chinese people to kind of get a sense of like what the actual fucking shit happened.
I'm surprised. I mean, have you guys talked to Filipinos about like U.S. presence in the Philippines?
I have a little bit.
But
Not in
I
depth.
haven't met a lot of Filipinos who are very angry about it.
No.
Yeah.
Right?
They're
No.
envoys.
So I wonder if that's like a lack of education or
Well,
I don't know
No, I'm
what
sure
else.
there are people who are mad about
Right.
it. The people who understand,
thing is-
America's history with the Philippines,
Yeah.
But I
To be
think
fair,
a lot.
I've talked to Filipino Americans.
Because
Not
like
Filipino.
yes,
Yeah,
actually,
that's
you're
a
right.
huge. That's
You're
a
right.
huge.
the Americans
yeah.
copied the strategy of the British when the British took over the India, right? They basically used them as their reserve army to attack everyone in it. They didn't fight them themselves.
Right.
They used India to
Yeah,
attack
proxy.
China,
Yeah.
whatever, blah blah blah,
Right.
whatever. In the same way, the United States kind of copied that model when they colonized the Philippines. That's why you have a lot of Filipino Americans in the military, because it's just kind of like this exchange of like,
Yep.
and so they use them to kind of like whatever. But then, in 1941, when the Japanese invaded everyone, MacArthur just ran away to fucking Australia because he was a like cowardly piece of shit, and they literally did not protect the Philippines, which was their job. And so it's just kind of like, why are you guys being cucked to a country that literally did not come to your defense in your time of need?
The Filipino people are very supportive and helpful people, so I think it's just a matter of people like America exploiting that part of the culture.
It was Arthur MacArthur, his Douglas MacArthur's father.
Wait, Douglas MacArthur's dad is Arthur MacArthur.
MacArthur.
Oh my
And
god.
he was kind of like,
So
I think he was a Civil War veteran,
What?
actually.
Oh, was he?
But also fought in the Spanish-American War in 1898. That was their imperialism into
that's
Cuba
crazy.
and the Philippines.
Right.
So he was kind of like the governor general, I
Yeah.
think maybe for
Time-wise, that
or
makes
not
sense.
not a governor general, maybe just like a military leader for like a couple of years in like 1901 to 1902. So that tradition was like that American imperialism to Asia was passed on to.
I'm going to be honest. I was having a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that Arthur MacArthur was a Civil War.
Yeah.
Was a Civil War vet
Yeah.
for
I think he was very young.
Douglas
I
MacArthur.
think he was very young
Yeah.
then.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then like towards the end of his career,
Yeah.
he was.
no,
1902.
it makes sense. It's
I
just
guess it kind of
was
makes
startling at first.
because you think the Civil War is like really long
So
time ago.
long ago, just a couple
1865,
generations.
1860, 1865.
Yeah.
But it's
just a couple
only a
gener-
couple of generations.
Yeah.
That kind of shows you how short the U.S. history is.
Is a baby.
That's why
U.S. is a fucking
I've been
baby.
just like studying all this history to get like a fucking like
Yeah.
30,000-foot view of everything.
No, yeah, we live in increments of 10, so we're like,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was
yeah,
so
yeah,
long
yeah,
ago. But
increments of 10.
that's like that wasn't that
Yeah.
long ago. That's
No,
crazy.
I try to think of like in terms of millennia.
Okay, Doug, you're so smart. Is that what you wanted to hear? I'm just
I
kidding.
mean, I know that,
Yes.
so it's
Chinese-
not, I don't need to hear it. I just know it.
So speaking of China getting angry, this time apparently Korea is getting angry because I don't know if you guys have seen this, but on February 26th,
Which Korea?
South Korea, sorry. South Korea is alarmed because they found China building steel structures in the South China Sea. So on February 26th, there's an area of the South China Sea called the Provisional Maritime Zone, also known as the PMZ, which is a jointly administered area in the Yellow Sea or the Western Sea, as it's known in Korea, in South Korea, sorry.
Get rid of THAAD.
Where-
Then you'll have something to say.
Yeah, well, China and exclusive economic zones overlap there. And recently, they were seen building these like steel structures off of the coast. And China claimed the structure was an aqua farm and requested Korea to leave when someone, I think they were like part of the Coast Guard, went over to see what it was. South Korea summoned a representative of the Chinese embassy in Seoul to lodge a formal protest, and then the PMZ was established. So that area was established in 2000 from an agreement that allows permits for fishing and transit because, you know, they need to be able to use that space together. But this actually isn't the first time that China has built something in that area where they're supposed to be, you know, copacetic with South Korea.
Yeah.
Satellite pictures show that they've constructed several large steel platforms. For instance, one of the structures built is a 71-meter tall underwater marine cage for salmon farming. South Korea claims that the structure was built without permission or prior notification, and apparently China has done this before and have taken things down and dismantled it after protests from Seoul. But I don't know. How do you guys feel about this? To me, it kind of just seemed like a lot of just showboating.
Yeah. Well, even when I was in Korea, I remember like watching news all the time about Chinese fishermen coming into like either disputed or like Korean waters, taking all our fish and shit like that. And I've definitely heard news about like Chinese warships like kind of bullying like Filipino like fishermen boats and stuff like that.
Really, it's just
Really?
like small dick energy from Korea. I'm sorry.
But
All of it from both sides.
The thing is though, like South Korea had many opportunities to make good relations with China.
Yeah.
And it is in South Korea's interest to make good relations with China.
Yeah, I mean,
But because of the US, South Korea doesn't.
cucked.
So
Yeah.
like
They are so cucked.
just from like a logistical standpoint, it makes sense to be like friendly with people who live right next door to
right,
you.
this big ass giant that
Right.
lives right there probably want to be close to this guy.
Right.
You know?
And came to your aid 600 years ago in the Imjin War.
Yeah.
When you're getting invaded by the Japs.
So yeah, I think because I don't think China would be doing this so easily if South Korea was a friend.
Yeah,
You know?
that's fair.
So, like, okay, for example, like you guys know when China, like after the whole tariffs thing, China like met up with Japan and South Korea, right, and said like, oh, let's battle these tariffs together, right? And then China said, we have agreed that we will battle these tariffs together. And as soon as China says that, Japan says, we never said that. South Korea says, that's a bit over exaggerated. Meaning it was said, it's just now Japan and South Korea is like
Fucking
essentially
Japs.
just turning their back saying,
Right.
oh, we never said that.
Yeah,
we
never
can't,
trust
we can't
the
say
Japs.
that like publicly in front of like the Americans.
Yeah, never trust the Japs.
So why?
It was a Korean policy 100 years ago and it should be Korean policy now.
so,
Yes, the Japanese. But
Japs.
speaking of that, actually, So let's go into what China is doing to try to override American tariffs.
You know what? It's our cracker. Japs is our cracker.
That's fair. They did do a lot of stuff towards Korean people. I just don't like any derogatory terms.
Well-
Because where's the line, right? Where's the line?
They're crackers.
That's just, yes.
They're Japs.
Fair. Okay, so I don't know if you guys know this, but in China, Xi Jinping just did a Southeast Asia tour. So he basically went to like
chart?
Cambodia and like Vietnam and Thailand and Indonesia. So basically, they're trying to override anything to do with America.
Yeah.
So,
But the other thing, too, is that for the first time ever, China said, we actually did help the Vietnamese during the Vietnam War. We had 300,000 PLA troops that were doing secret missions for the Chinese. So this is their way of saying, hey, Vietnam, we're friends now, or like let's be friends again. Because back in the because of all the Khmer Rouge fuckery in the 1970s, they kind of had soured relations.
Right.
And then like I think by the 1990s, that when the Khmer Rouge was like nullified and like kind of all of their war crimes kind of came out, China was like, oh shit, we might have fucked up there a little bit, but we don't want to talk about it. Let's just pretend like it never happened, guys. So that's why a lot of Vietnamese people have been angry at China for the longest time, because they're like, you got to own up to your shit. But now it's just kind of like, all right, like let's talk about it now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it, because like now that the tariffs are attacking all of us, let's come together. Let's try. And so, Xi Jinping actually did go to Vietnam. He went to the Ho Chi Minh Mausoleum, and they're talking like all these I think they're trying to build high-speed rail into Vietnam. Like
yeah, we're going to get into that. Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's just kind of like all these connections are starting to happen with like the strongest ties since basically 1975.
So
China.
with Cambodia specifically, the majority of their economy is in textiles. So I don't know if you've seen it. A lot of stuff is like made in Cambodia.
Yeah.
So they're basically trying to just diversify as many industries as possible, so they don't have to rely as much on that one industry.
If that market tanks, then they're
Yep.
kinda like, yeah.
In addition, China is in talks with Cambodia to create a 94-mile canal that links the Mekong to the Gulf of Thailand. So by doing so, it's going to be a $1.2 billion deal to build what they're calling the Funan Techno Canal during Xi Jinping's visit to China. They're going to link the Mekong River near the Phnom Penh, and again, if I'm butchering these, I'm so sorry, to a port on the Gulf of Thailand. Construction actually started on August 5th, but quickly halted after the groundbreaking. So they're based on like a build to operate transfer basis, which basically means that Cambodia is going to hold on to 51%, and China is going to hold on to 49% of the ownership of this canal. So Cambodia is going to have the ruling majority, technically. The canal will create new inland waterway maritime corridor capable of handling vessels up to 3,000 deadweight tons.
Wow.
Which I don't know what that is the difference to regular tons, but from what I understand, it can handle a lot.
A lot bigger than that photo.
Yes. Yeah. No. That's just the groundbreaking. That's not the actual canal. They're just
That's it.
yeah.
That looks like.
But it will significantly reduce the comprehensive logistics costs in Cambodia and promote Cambodia's industry to the middle to high end of the value chain. So they're really making a name for themselves in the chain supply as it pertains to
because
Asia.
transportation is very important in terms of capitalist development. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but the railroads did supercharge the American economy. In terms
Exactly.
of, and that was actually started with England. The Napoleonic Wars started a huge demand for steel. And then after the war, they had all this steel, because they were making it for weapons. They're like, oh, should we do with all this steel? And then they invented the steam engine and the locomotive. So they're like, oh, let's make a lot of railroad tracks.
Yeah, which is ridiculous that we're not investing in that type of infrastructure, knowing what it does to economies to help, supercharge them.
That's literally how England became the dominant kind of like force. The railroads.
Yeah.
And they were able to conduct all trade all around the world because they built all these railroad networks in Europe and India especially.
So the next stop is, I think Xi Jinping also went to Indonesia, where they have a similar industry to Cambodia, where they rely on a lot of textiles. I think they were saying that if Indonesia's textile industry suffers, they would have to lay off somewhere like 280,000 people or something. Like it's a big part of their economy. Like they make a lot of garments, footwear, textiles, furniture, and for some reason, a lot of shrimp exportations.
Oh, maybe they have a lot of shrimp in
Yeah,
there.
Apparently, yeah. I know of Vietnamese shrimp. I didn't realize Indonesia was also exporting a lot of shrimp. But they plan to boost their imports of U.S. energy and agricultural commodities as well, like liquefied petroleum gas, crude oil, wheat, soybeans.
Yeah, that's why the Japanese
things like
needed
that.
them during World War II.
Yeah. But they're scared because currently I think their U.S. duties are somewhere between 10 to 37%. And I think Trump is saying that they're going to put a 10% baseline for now, which would put their tariffs close to like 50%, which is like pretty high for a developing country. But in addition to that, Indonesia is actually in the news because there are fears that they're returning back to their authoritarian roots after their new president, whose name I cannot pronounce, so I'm not going to try, ups military presence. Do you guys know much about Indonesia?
I mean, I know about the Jakarta genocide.
Yep.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't know really much what happened after that.
Indonesia had the first Asian Communist Party ever. Like the first Communist Party in Asia was in Indonesia.
I didn't know that either.
Really? Before the
Yeah.
CPC?
Yeah, before Indonesia was number one.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, they were colonized by the Dutch for 300 years.
Yep,
Right.
yep. So apparently, the previous president, Suharto, was toppled by student-led protests in 1998, or I guess several previous
Yeah.
presidents.
It was Sukarno, and then the CIA staged a coup, and then it was Suharno.
Yeah,
I remember the
Suharto.
names were super similar.
But either way, this current president, during President Suharto, was a commander in the elite force to suppress the unrest with the student revolution.
Wait, he was one of the...
He was one of the
Oh,
commanders.
shit.
He must have a lot of stories to trade with Obama.
So he remains accused of human rights abuses, including allegations that he had ordered the abduction of activists at the end of Suharto's rule,
How
which
the hell did he become president?
he's denied. I don't know.
CIA.
But he moved. So after he was elected as president, he's been alarmingly upping military presence. So he moved to expand the military's role in government, even though there was previous taboo. So like, because of Indonesia's history, it's become really taboo for anyone in the military to even join politics, to the point that in Indonesia, there's a saying that if you're in the military and you want to join politics, the quote is, if you want to do politics, then resign. Like you have to quit the military first because they're so anti-military in Indonesia's
Right.
government.
Because of that
right,
genocide.
obviously.
It's a
Because
stain
of their
like,
trauma, right? So he's allowed police now to currently monitor foreign journalists and researchers to spook those people working on any sensitive subjects.
That's not a good sign.
No. In fact, there's a quote in here that says, journalism always goes hand in hand with democracy. If journalism is suppressed, the freedom of speech is suppressed, democracy will be paralyzed.
So I was reading the Jakarta Method, right? And apparently a lot of the people who were the commandos or whatever, they were literally passing out Mein Kampf because they were all like, we need to be Hitler, basically.
Good times. That's crazy. That's crazy. But I really wanted to highlight this because, like, we're doing the same thing here right now.
Well, yeah, it's just imperialism turned inward as fascism.
What he said. So we can move on from that. So we're moving back on to China's tour in the Southeast Asia region, where what you mentioned earlier, Xi Jinping went to Vietnam, and they, along with Malaysia and Cambodia, they're in talks of creating an intra-regional rail transport system. And apparently that was like Xi Jinping's like number one priority doing this tour, was to talk about this rail system. Vietnam sells most of its fruit, for instance, to China. Like a lot of people think that they send the majority of it to America. They don't. But Vietnam lacks cold chain infrastructure. So by the time the fruit gets to China, even, let alone the US, it's already like ripe, if not over ripened. So they're hoping that by building this super fast connected rail system, that it's going to help with that, so that they'll be able to sell more fruits that aren't going to go bad with less waste. A lot of people have also been critical of China's Belt and Road Initiative, stating that it's some sort of like neo-colonialism. But specifically to that, this intra-rail system is more jointly funded. So for instance, like Malaysia is investing $11.3 billion, as well as some of the other countries, are putting into it. So it's typically in the Belt and Road Initiative, China is the one investing in all these countries, which is why people make that claim, even though to me, it doesn't really make any sense.
To be colonized, you got to be losing more than you're gaining.
Right. That's what I mean. Like,
Which is not the case.
to be mutually beneficial isn't colonialism.
Yeah.
That's just smart.
That's just
That is-
ism.
Right. That's just being a neighbor.
Yeah,
I don't know. You know what I mean?
I don't know, socialism, where you're literally trying to help people in need.
Like when I lived in Philadelphia and I like shoveled my elderly neighbor's house because they were old, like, was that colonialism?
You know what's
I'm pretty sure I was
interesting?
just being nice.
I'm reading a lot about the history of China and its relation with the West over time. It's actually interesting because when they started to, they didn't like, they started to go there like in the Silk Road, right, in the 1200s. So they kind of had a little bit of an idea of what China was like for a long time. And so apparently, China's had this system where it wasn't capitalist per se, but like it was this kind of like feudal like society, but it all kind of like worked together in harmony, and everyone didn't feel like they were oppressed. Everyone feel like they were kind of like working in sync, and there wasn't actually that much like you have to work on that, you have to do this or whatever. It was kind of like more harmonious, where everyone kind of just accepted what they were doing. And so they were actually very productive. They were like making all this cool shit, whatever. And it's interesting because I read that there were philosophers in the West like Leibniz and Voltaire in the 16 and 1700s who were like, oh, that's cool. Like, how do they have a society that doesn't even have Christian ideals or anything like that, but they just all kind of work together in peace and harmony? Like, that's insane. But then by the 17 and 1800s, because they wanted to try to take it over, Britain started to make all this fucking propaganda, be like, oh no, they're they need to be controlled, and they need to be, they try to make us kowtow to them. No, that's disrespectful to the European. And so they made all this propaganda to like basically justify, selling drugs to them and killing them and whatever, or their whatever.
Speaking of propaganda, you know what I find really funny is the way that American media frames what happened in Southeast Asia with Xi Jinping's tour. Like, for instance, this New York Times article states China wants countries to unite against Trump, but is met with wariness, which reading Asian newspapers, that's not the feeling that I got from it. Yeah. They were very much looking to help, like, work with China to advance their own countries. In addition, Trump apparently thinks that China's in talks with Vietnam to purposely screw over the United States. That's how we're being framed over here.
Yeah.
Because like it's
versus
just
what's actually happening. They're just
hundreds of years of
up.
British Anglo-American imperialism has been based on divide and conquer.
Yeah.
So they're just trying to like start this shit again that doesn't exist, and more Asian people in Asia are being like, you guys are fucking full of shit.
Yeah.
And so that's why these South Korean and Japanese people are sweating, because they're like, oh shit, if more and more Asian people are like seeing this, and we can't say anything bad about Daddy America
for so long. Yeah.
It's just kind of like, oh shit, what do we do?
What do we do?
Like that's what happens with fascists. When fascists begin to realize that they're going to lose, they get more and more desperate.
They sure do.
Speaking of tariffs in South Korea, you guys know about FTA, Free Trade Agreement?
Yeah.
So, there's NAFTA, which Mexico and Canada.
Yep.
But there's also FTA with South Korea. The only other country with FTA, by the way.
Used to, at least.
Yeah,
Is
and
it
then now
even-
American.
It's
now-
not
American.
Yeah.
And then technically with that in place, Trump is not supposed to do this.
Right. Yeah.
But he's doing it anyway.
He's doing it anyway.
So that should
'Cause
show you.
Well, I don't think he even knows what FTA is. I'm going to be dead honest.
These are
I don't
also
think he knows.
these are also geopolitical, like strategic trade agreements. They're not just economic. They're just kind of like also for like military strategy.
Yeah, no, there's
like
just like any like regular humans. It's not one thing that defines your decision. There's a lot of factors that go into it.
He just doesn't understand anything about that.
I think it's that he doesn't understand it, and two, he's just so narcissistic that I think he's like, if I didn't do it, why the fuck do I care if it's there? You know what I mean?
In a way,
I'm going to do what I want.
It's a good thing in my opinion because like the CIA has been running the show and like, kind of like making everything nice and proper so that, everything is controlled. But just by his chaos, like more and more Asian people I feel like are realizing something fucked up is going on here.
Yeah, and you know what helped with that? The banning of TikTok when we all migrated over to Little Red Book. When people were like, oh, what is that really nice city behind? Oh, that's China? That's crazy.
And like these tariffs. These tariffs have exploded. Oh, wait, all this shit's made in China and it costs what now? What do we
I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of those videos are trolling, but still, the message is still the same.
Right.
It's just kind of like everything Trump is doing is actually helping China, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. But he's too dumb to know it. Yeah. But speaking of propaganda,
I saw that.
I don't know if you guys saw this, but you know how in America we're always talking about like Chinese spies? Watch out for the China spies. You know what I mean? Well, apparently China named 3 alleged NSA spies wanted for U.S. cyber attacks during the Asian Winter Games. So I think this was back in February of this year. They're looking for the 3 people are named Catherine Wilson, Robert Snelling, and Stephen Johnson. They're accused of working with the NSA's Office of Tailored Access Operations. And in fact, they're so wanted that they even have cash rewards for information leading to their capture. I don't know. It didn't say. But allegedly, these people participated in repeated cyber attacks on China's critical information infrastructure and hacked activities against enterprises such as Huawei. So they try to hack like Huawei and stuff. China's claiming that they tried to, quote, disrupt the event system and affect the normal operation by targeting key sectors such as energy, transport, water conservancy, communications, and national defense research institutes to damage critical information infrastructure, cause social disorder, and steal important confidential information in related fields.
I mean, that's basically what they did during Tiananmen in 1989. So,
but it's just funny because we focus so much on all these like Chinese spies to the point that I think they were even stating that all of the Chinese laundromats near large American bases were banned. And I literally made a video like a year or two ago where I called majority of them, and they were all like "안녕하세요," and I was like, "Oh, 한국말 하세요?" And they were like, "Yep." And I was like, "Oh, because you're Korean." So I was like, "Oh, that's really funny because all of these laundromats are Korean owned. You racist fucks."
That's what I'm saying. Like
propaganda.
This is an anti-Asian Nazi country. Over and over again. I've been saying that for 5 years now.
I work in cybersecurity, so I have a bit more insight into like these kinds of like North Korea hacked this, China hacked this, or whatever. There's absolutely no way you can know. There's absolutely no way.
No, you can't know.
You can't.
No.
There's no way.
You can't know what?
It's hard to trace.
You can't say that, North Korea did this, China did this. There's no way. Unless
because
you have...
what hackers will do, they'll spoof shit through North Korea.
Which makes it almost impossible to trace who did it.
And for example, like a lot of times, like if you read these articles, they'll say like, oh, according to security researchers at Microsoft, let's say, right? And so if you see the report that the security researchers, the malware researchers at Microsoft wrote, they'll break down the malware and they'll say, oh, look at this snippet of code. This is what North Koreans tend to use. That's the evidence. Anyone can do that.
Anyone can do that. It's literally just hearsay.
That's remember the Uyghur genocide narrative? They were like, oh, these satellite photos, they show these facilities. So they're obviously killing people. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, the only way you can track someone and know who they did it, I think you have to catch them in the act, right?
Yeah.
You have to trace them while they're hacking. Otherwise, it's impossible to prove where and who.
That's probably where the RFK autism thing is. They want to track all the autists.
They're like, these motherfuckers are all smarter than me. How does he talk?
I can't do it.
But either way,
I killed my dad, but I can't talk about that because it was probably Israel.
I saw this.
I don't know if you guys saw this video.
I saw
but,
this. It was so satisfying.
It is so satisfying.
Oh, it's
so
Israelis in
happened
Thailand.
in Thailand where there were nuisance streamers, kind of like Somali and Vitaly. Just watch his video real quick. This is in a Thai. The person that the person's talking to is a Thai ranger. He's a park ranger, and he's talking to a foreigner. And just watch this interaction quick because it's so satisfying.
Attitude towards me as a national corporation. Even your trip today is ended. What does it mean? Today is finished. There is no vacation today. See where you want to show us your passport? He said to me, like, the last time we came, ni hao. So your books?
Yeah, I know that.
But I might take this chance to also remind you to be a bit more respectful. Don't be racist.
I'm not. I'm racist.
Right. I
I'm
heard you say ni hao, okay? We're not Chinese, we're Thai. So try that again, and I will have you deported. Yes.
Oh, it looks like Thailand's finally grown some balls.
Oh my god, that's so satisfying. Though he's like, your vacation, it's over.
Yeah. And I saw comments on
done.
that video saying like, oh, like, what's wrong with saying ni hao? What, like some people were saying, okay, you see, like, I'm Chinese.
Oh, well, then deport you
and
too.
whatever.
Yeah. I hate these Uncle Chongs. It's like, I wouldn't be offended because you don't understand nuance or microaggressions.
Right.
And you are
Dumb.
If someone legitimately, you know, like accidentally, like without like realizing I'm not Chinese, said ni hao or something, that's
100%.
different. But you bought the damn tickets to Thailand.
Yeah, no.
And
Like,
if you cared at least a little bit about the culture, you would at least learn hello
it's just
in their
disrespectful.
language.
It's blatant disrespect.
Yeah.
it's just the obvious thing that you think that all Asian people are the same.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
the further part where you say, I don't care to differentiate.
Yeah, that's not
And that's
okay.
the basis of racism.
Yeah.
That's the basis of racism. So it's obviously racist.
You know, when I saw the comment, I was like, shut the hell up.
Yeah, I hate that shit.
I don't care if you're not offended.
Whenever I make content about stuff like this, those are the comments I get. I'm Asian and I'm not offended. Or the other one is like, there's more important things happening.
I'd
Where
be
do
like-
you think stuff happens? Do you think someone just wakes up and just goes, I'm going to kill an Asian person? Or do you think it started with shit like this?
Right.
I'd just be like, you're just a fucking cuck. That's what I would just say. Oh, it's because you're a cuck.
Who are you trying to win points by saying shit like that?
White people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go suck on some white person's cock somewhere else, you fucking cuck.
And obviously, I showed this video because our next topic of conversation is, drumroll roll, is Vitaly. So I don't know if you guys saw this, but Vitaly basically confessed to his crimes. Watch right here.
Where Vitaly, based on the report, committed disruptive and inappropriate acts, to quote the report.
Who filed the blotter?
Some victims in Taguig. So I'm sure you've
victims
seen
themselves?
Yes, I'm sure you've seen the videos. He was caught harassing a Filipina. He tried grabbing the cap of a security guard, as you can see there. And then there were other acts that he committed in Boracay. You know, this guy has been around. He's been doing this since 2012 all over the world. He's been in the States, he's been to Brazil, Egypt, the UK, doing this sort of thing. Now, Secretary John Vic has said he violated our laws and he disrespected Filipinos. You know, Filipinos we are friendly people, we are hospitable people. But this guy took advantage of us. And ang malas niya, you know, if other countries merely deported him, ang malas niya ngayon, you know, his tough luck is that we have Secretary Remulla saying now that we're not going to let him off easy. So he will not be deported. He will stand trial here. He will face the charges here. And hopefully he will be jailed here.
So where is Vitaly right now?
Vitaly is currently detained at the Bureau of Immigration's detention center in Camp Bagong Diwa.
Okay.
And he will await trial there.
So there are statements stating that he did confess, that he did do those things. But if you guys listen to the last part there, where he's staying, I realize that no one is covering where he's staying. And I don't know if you guys seen any of those documentaries or shows highlighting jail in the Philippines, which are, you know, historically overcrowded and they're run essentially by prisoners, all of them, if you've seen any of them. So I decided to do a deeper dive and to see if we could see where Vitaly is staying. So he's currently staying in a jail that, as it states here, that they're trying to make an example out of him. It's called the Bureau of Immigration Bicutan, again, if I'm butchering that, I'm sorry, detention center. This detention center is essentially strictly for these undesirable aliens. So they're for foreigners and things like that. I hate to say it, the majority of seem to be sexual deviants. A lot of pedophiles.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Things like that in there. So if you look through just even their Wikipedia, it's designed to hold a maximum of 140 people. But in May of 2020, there were over 400 detainees with an overcrowding rate of 285%. So it's probably been more than that.
Yeah.
In fact, in other videos like this video that I'm not going to play, this person who's from England compared it to a gulag, which is,
Well, that's just, imbecilic American propaganda against the Soviets, but
yeah, but he called it that just because it was just like a really horribly placed jail. It's like very overcrowded.
It's more of a concentration, Holocaust concentration.
It kind of is, but like, I also found this like website / Facebook group where this person literally goes around documenting people who are in this place, and he's documenting the living, quarters and things like that. And in this video, you'll see the overcrowding, but I find it funny that it starts with a box of Malona bars, which are Korean.
Yeah.
I thought it was Melona.
Yeah.
But in English.
Malona? You say Malona?
Damn. Dude, anything can happen there. Look at that. Anything can happen.
Yeah. So they're literally just laying on the ground, essentially on top of each other.
Yeah.
That's just one of the things we saw. Here's another photo of what it looked like. I think this was like back in like 2018. So this was a while ago.
It got worse since then.
Yeah, it's gotten significantly worse since then. People are literally sleeping on packed pallets to separate themselves from the ground.
Wow.
In addition, we see overflowing trash in the living quarters. If you look down here, this person is literally sleeping by a heap of trash. As you can see, he's a foreigner.
Right. With the Caucasian legs.
Yeah. These are the quarters as it deems. Like, you literally see rats. And it's not even just like one-off rats. I mean, like, you will look down where your food is supposed to be, and there will be a family of rats eating your 30-cent meal. Because remember, they spend $1.30 or $1.20 on 3 meals a day. So that's like 40 cents a meal.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
So he's... Oh, shit. What?
Yeah, sorry. Trigger warning for this next one. But I also read that if you get medical issues here, it's basically a death sentence because they don't have a medical tent. And they are very hesitant to take you to a hospital, to the point where someone had to have part of their foot amputated. And because there were no medical teams, it essentially started to get infected and rot off.
Is that bone or pus?
I think
don't want to look at it anymore.
In addition, this person also documented the fact that a Korean cellmate tried to commit suicide. Apparently, this person got into jail for scamming gambling while in the Philippines.
Yeah, Koreans go to Philippines to gamble.
And then while he was in this jail, he connected with the other Koreans and gambled there, got caught cheating, got beaten, kicked out of his cell to the point where he had to sleep on the ground. And then because of it, he tried to commit suicide take his own life by like taking muriatic acid, apparently, which I don't even know how he got his hands on that.
That sounds painful.
I don't know.
That sounds extremely painful.
Extremely painful.
Why wouldn't you like hang yourself like a normal person?
I don't know. Either way, apparently this person survived that attempt. He came back to the jail like a couple days later after actually going to a hospital. But if you look at the living quarters of this place, like, this is like their washing area. Oh. This is supposed to be where you go to clean stuff. And look how fucking... that's so
How
gross.
much of a degenerate do you need to be gambling in the fucking prison?
God. Look at this next photo that I can't look at. This is their shower.
Why are you showing us this?
That's their shower. That's where they have
I thought that was a floor color, but that's not. That's just
literal shit.
I think it's literal shit.
Shit water.
Yeah, shit water.
Yeah. So I found one video where someone with a snuck-in phone inside a Bicutan. Sorry, I'm butchering it. So they give you a quick tour.
So they already sentenced Vitaly or whatever?
No,
he's waiting trial.
He's waiting trial. But the thing is, in this jail, on this specific channel that I'm about to show you, there's two videos. There's this video and another video where the person is being interviewed. And that person has been there awaiting trial for like 4 or 5 years. So the news is saying that Vitaly could be waiting for like 2 to 3 years. There are people in this jail that are waiting trial for like 6, 7 years. They're just waiting to be seen in trial.
So he might be in like, fucking limbo.
He might be, but
legal limbo. But like, because they might be just fucking with him.
Look at this. I mean, there's not really too much audio that you need to hear, but like, we're talking about like tarp roofs. Like, it's basically like everything there is just made out of
super
trash.
shitty on purpose.
Probably.
To like be
while
like,
the
you want to go to this place?
Yeah.
Like, look at that. Could you imagine walking around like slipping off your sandal by accident and stepping on that ground by accident?
Yeah.
Basically, what we're trying to say is that like, and this was taken in 2023, so it's like somewhat recent.
Yeah.
The other thing too is like if you are saying this is a jail for mostly pedophiles or whatever, they're probably like they probably accept it because if they were in actual jail, they'd probably be killed by the other inmates.
Oh, 100%.
So they're like, oh, okay, we'll take this shitty fucking place.
100%.
As long as we don't get killed.
Yeah. But like, either way, that motherfucker is not having a good time.
Yeah.
He's not having a good time.
Yeah.
In fact, at this jail, remember what I said earlier about if you get sick, it's basically a death sentence? An American there was locked up. What was it for again?
Was he a pedophile?
No, he was caught with drugs in 2002, and there was a complaint for special protection of children against abuse for this guy, but we don't really know. Either way, in the Philippines, both of his charges were dismissed.
Yeah.
And while he was waiting for deportation, he caught tuberculosis.
Oh shit!
And ended up dying in the jail because he got zero medical care.
Yeah.
So basically, the moral of the story is don't go to this jail because it's quite literally a death sentence. In fact,
what's like the survival rate per year?
The crazy thing is like a couple years ago, this jail specifically was even looked into, and because there was claims that they were giving people preferential treatment based off of their VIP status, and something like, what was it, 35 people were fired from the facilities. So basically to say like they are not giving VIP treatment to anyone anymore.
You're like, because we got to keep it equally shitty.
Because they literally got fired and got in trouble for it. So like, not only is that happening, but 8 years ago in 2017, the UN, and I know how you guys feel about the UN, but the UN Rights Council went to this jail and did a tour. And right here, they stated that the conditions of Bicutan were appalling, particularly as living spaces was insufficient. The food was poor quality and insufficient quality, and there was no medical assistance. And they stated this in 2017 when the jail was only 7 people over capacity.
Oh, shit.
Remember, right now it's more than double, 285% of capacity. So they were saying that it was atrocious with just 7 people over.
Right.
So basically what I'm trying to say is that it sucks there. There was literally articles written about how people just disappear there at Bicutan Detention Center. This article was so deeply embedded that I had to go find it.
Yeah, you had to go to the...
I had to go to Wayback Machine to find it. Look, they're literally like slaughtering animals so that they can eat and
Holy
live.
shit.
These people like either disappeared or like something happened to them and they died. But yeah, Vitaly is not having a good time. There's a good chance that he's going to die of a very curable disease because they just don't give a shit. And I'm pretty sure the government's not going to do anything to make sure he's okay.
They're trying to make it an example of him because they know the country's angry about Duterte right now. So they're trying to give him it's kind of like, when Jesus was crucified, they were like, oh, give us Jesus. Like, oh, well, there's this other criminal. It's like, no, give us Jesus. It's kind of like that, where it's like, oh, I'll give this other criminal so you guys will be satisfied.
But even if it wasn't because of Duterte and people just hate on Vitaly, fuck it.
Yeah, I just want to make people understand the geopolitical context between what's going on. It's not like the Philippines is like this very just state that always, follows, their own kind of like moral standards instead of going on with Daddy America because.
But either way, don't fuck around in the Philippines because you will find out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you might not be found ever again. So.
Have you guys heard of copinos?
Yes.
You've heard?
Yeah. I've heard the term. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not surprised.
unfortunately, there's a lot of sex tourism now with South
Right.
Koreans going to the
Right,
Philippines.
right. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah.
But yeah.
There's a Netflix
kids.
show about like a casino. Did you guys watch it? It's really good. It's kind of like Narcos.
In the Philippines?
Yeah, it takes place in the Philippines, and it's with like really big actors.
American actors?
No, Korean.
Oh.
It's like
what's it
Netflix,
called?
but it's I forgot. But it was huge. It was really big. It has Chae Min-sik in it. You guys know Chae Min-sik? He's Old Boy.
Oh, yeah.
He's in it. A bunch of other famous
Did
actors.
you watch
It was a movie?
Yeah, no, it's a series.
It was a series.
And it's really
Did
good.
you watch
Recent?
Eczema?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did.
Was
like
it
it?
recent?
It came out maybe last year.
I wanted to look into that.
It's really good. It's very fun. Yeah.
But they touch on Copinos?
Yeah.
No.
Dang it.
No.
But Eczema had a very strong anti-imperial Japanese message in it.
Yeah.
I have not seen either. Well,
Yeah.
check those out. Let us know if you've seen them down below. Otherwise, thank you for joining us on another episode. Joined today by David Yoon, Douglas Kim, I'm Ed Choi. Make sure you like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, comment, do all the things, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Later.
You know, speaking of like anti-capitalist media, I feel like that's where it stops. People watch it and think, oh, that's just how it is. It's like,
Yeah, that's true.
like what I always feel like really actual about things like Squid Games or like Parasite is it leaves the message. I get the impression like that's just what it is. I feel like every critique of capitalism has to be followed up with then what?